Commander Elara Frost stood motionless before the observation window, her reflection ghosted against the backdrop of distant stars. 20 years of military service had taught her to mask emotion, but the tremor in her clenched fist betrayed her. The holographic projection hovering beside her cast an eerie blue glow across her face, illuminating the fresh scar that ran from temple to jaw, a reminder of humanity's last border skirmish with the Centauri. "Play it again," she ordered, voice steady despite the ice forming in her stomach. The AI complied without comment. The intercepted transmission flickered and reformed, showing the grotesque, mantis-like visage of a Dravak hive commander. Its mandibles clicked rhythmically as it communicated with its brood. The Sol system is confirmed unprotected by galactic treaty. Harvest authorization granted. Primary settlement focus, third planet. Expected resistance, minimal. Expected acquisition time, standard planetary cycle. Begin neural preparation of digestion chambers. Elara's jaw tightened. The translation matrix never failed to make the Dravak sound clinically methodical about their planetary genocides. She'd studied the aftermath of their attacks on other worlds, the hollowed-out husks of civilizations, biomass harvested down to microorganisms, leaving nothing but barren rock and metal ruins. "How long?" she asked. Admiral Jonah Reeves materialized from the shadows at the back of the observation deck. Unlike Elara, he wore his 60 years openly, white hair cropped military short, face deeply lined from decades of hard decisions. The Proxima listening post puts them at 8 days out. They're not hiding their approach. They don't think they need to. And the Galactic Council? The Admiral's bitter laugh echoed across the deck. Currently selling viewing packages. Prime entertainment, apparently. Watch the primitive Earth species fall to the mighty Dravak. They've already named the program Swift Extinction. Betting pools are open on how many hours we'll last. Elara's knuckles whitened against the railing. Earth had attempted to join the galactic community for decades, ever since first contact with the Meridian traders. Each application was met with dismissive amusement or bureaucratic obstruction. Humanity was too young, too volatile, too insignificant to join the great cosmic powers. Their homeworld sat on the unfashionable edge of the Orion Arm, far from the centers of galactic politics and trade. "They could help us," she said, knowing the futility of her words even as she spoke them. "They won't." Admiral Reeves moved beside her, his weathered hands clasping behind his back. "To them, we're an anthropological curiosity at best, vermin at worst. The Arcturus Hegemony Ambassador actually suggested we should be honored to provide such quality entertainment." A notification chimed, and a new hologram appeared, a tactical display of the Sol system. The approaching Dravak swarm appeared as an ominous red cloud gradually encroaching upon the blue marker of Earth. "What about Protocol Omega?" Elara asked, her voice dropping to just above a whisper. The Admiral's expression hardened. "The Security Council is voting now. President Zhou is pushing for activation." Elara closed her eyes briefly. The Leviathan was never meant to be used. The ethical committees. "The ethical committees aren't staring down the barrel of extinction," Reeves cut in. "We built it for exactly this scenario, when humanity faced an existential threat with no allies to call upon." The door to the observation deck hissed open, and Lieutenant Felix Harrington entered, his normally composed demeanor visibly shaken. He saluted sharply. "Sir, madam, the council's session has ended. Protocol Omega has been authorized by unanimous vote." A heavy silence descended upon the room, broken only by the soft beeping of monitoring equipment. Elara felt a cold weight settle in her chest. "Alert Outpost Sharon," the Admiral said finally. "Tell Dr. Nakamura to begin the awakening sequence. Authorization code, Prometheus Unbound." "Yes, sir," Felix acknowledged, but hesitated. "Sir, the galactic broadcasts. They've begun advanced coverage of the Dravak approach. They're mocking us." Admiral Reeves' face darkened. "Show me." The main viewscreen activated, displaying a multi-species news panel. A blue-skinned Meridian broadcaster gestured animatedly as translated subtitles scrolled beneath. "And we're counting down to what specialists are calling the fastest projected extinction event of the decade. The Dravak swarm has selected its next feeding ground, and it's the isolated home planet of those bipedal mammals who've been pestering the Council for recognition." The camera panned to a tall, spindly Vexery analyst, whose four eyes blinked asynchronously as he spoke. "Indeed, Trasmal. The humans have demonstrated some charming technological development for such a young species, but nothing that could possibly withstand a Dravak incursion. Our viewing audience should prepare for a brief but spectacular display. A third panelist, a gelatinous quarian, rippled with what translated as amusement. I've placed a substantial wager on a complete planetary consumption within 6 standard hours. The humans don't even have basic gravitic defenses. They still rely on chemical propulsion for their primitive spacecraft. Laughter rippled through the studio audience. "Turn it off," Elara said quietly, disgust evident in her voice. The screen went dark. Admiral Reeves stood silently for a long moment before speaking. "Lieutenant, what was your homeworld before joining Earth's forces?" Felix straightened. "New Jakarta, sir. Third colony of Indonesia's expansion efforts. Family. My parents, 2 sisters. All still there, sir." Reeves nodded slowly. "Commander Frost?" "Born in Scotland," Elara replied. "My brother runs a whiskey distillery in the Highlands. He has 3 children." The Admiral turned to face them fully. "Remember them in the coming days. Remember what we're fighting for. While the galaxy laughs, we will do what humanity has always done when backed into a corner. We will survive, by any means necessary." He gestured to the tactical display. "Lieutenant, I want hourly updates on the Dravak approach. Commander, you'll coordinate with Sharon Outpost and oversee the Leviathan's activation protocols." "Sir," Elara acknowledged, but couldn't keep the hesitation from her voice. The Leviathan was theoretical when I last reviewed the briefings. The quantum displacement drive alone was considered decades from viability. A ghost of a smile crossed the Admiral's face. "That was the official position, yes. The truth is more complicated. While the galaxy dismissed us as primitive, we've been preparing for this day. The Meridian incursion of 2097 taught us we couldn't rely on galactic benevolence." He activated a secure communication channel on his wrist device. "Dr. Nakamura, this is Admiral Reeves. Proceed with Protocol Omega. Authorization. Earth stands alone." A woman's voice, calm but tense, responded. "Authorization confirmed. Beginning awakening sequence. The Leviathan stirs, Admiral." Across the vast distance beyond Neptune, in a hidden facility built into Charon, Pluto's largest moon, Dr. Hannah Nakamura received the transmission. Her hands moved with practiced precision across holographic interfaces, initiating sequences she had rehearsed countless times but never expected to implement. Deep in the facility's core, massive power conduits hummed to life. Ancient machinery, some based on principles reverse-engineered from crashed alien vessels, others born from humanity's desperate innovation, began charging systems dormant for decades. Back on Earth, in cities across the globe, civilians remained blissfully unaware of the approaching threat. The governments had decided against mass panic. Better to let people live their final days in peace if the Leviathan failed. In Geneva, the United Earth Defense Council gathered an emergency session. President Zhou Lin addressed the grim-faced assembly. "For 50 years, we have reached out to the stars in friendship. For 50 years, we have been rebuffed, mocked, or ignored. Today, the galaxy watches eagerly for our extinction." She paused, surveying the room. "They believe us weak because we have shown them only our extended hand, never our clenched fist. They believe us primitive because we have hidden our true technological capacity. Today, that changes." On the other side of the world, in the Tokyo megalopolis, Scientist General Hideki Tanaka stood before the quantum communications array. As the last surviving member of the Leviathan's original design team, he alone understood the full implications of what they were about to unleash. "Begin the quantum entanglement synchronization," he ordered. "All prototype defense systems online." Across the globe, hidden installations activated, revealing technology far beyond what Earth had ever shown to extraterrestrial visitors. Commander Elara Frost left the observation deck and made her way to the secure briefing room. Only now would she learn the full truth about the Leviathan, what it truly was and what it could do. The room contained only a single data terminal, biometrically locked to her identity. As the scanner confirmed her retinal pattern, the screen illuminated with a simple message. "Project Leviathan. Classification, Omega Black. From the depths, we rise." What followed made her blood run cold. The Leviathan wasn't just a warship, it was an abomination by any ethical standard. A hybrid of stolen alien technology and human desperation. A weapon born of the darkest corners of human ingenuity, designed to ensure that if humanity faced extinction, they would not go quietly. Hours passed as Elara absorbed the horrifying details. When she finally emerged, her face was ashen. Admiral Reeves waited outside. "Now you understand," he said softly. "This will make us no better than them," she whispered. "Perhaps. But we'll be alive to wrestle with that moral dilemma." He placed a hand on her shoulder. "History may judge us harshly, Commander. But there must be humans left alive to write that history." Above them, the night sky seemed peaceful, stars twinkling innocently. But among those stars, the Dravak approached, mandibles already anticipating the feast of an entire world. On distant planets, viewers gathered around screens, placing bets on humanity's final hours, anticipating the entertainment value of watching another insignificant species vanish from the galaxy. None of them knew what waited in the cold darkness beyond Neptune. None of them understood that humanity had long ago recognized its vulnerability and prepared accordingly. None of them suspected that Earth, far from being defenseless, had created something that would soon make the galaxy tremble. In her quarters that night, Commander Elara Frost couldn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling, thinking of her brother's children playing in the Scottish hills, oblivious to the approaching danger. She thought of the billions of humans going about their lives, loving, fighting, creating, dreaming, all those lives now depending on a weapon too terrible to contemplate. "Computer," she said to the darkness, "show me the latest galactic broadcast." The screen on her wall illuminated. The same panel of aliens continued their discussion, now joined by a renowned Dravak expert. "The nutritional value of human biomass is actually quite high," the expert was saying. "The Dravak will likely convert most of the population into larval incubation hosts rather than immediate consumption." "How fascinating," the Meridian host replied. "So some humans might remain alive for several days after the initial invasion?" "Oh yes, conscious and aware throughout the process." The Dravak prefer their hosts to experience the full larval gestation cycle. It produces certain hormonal responses that enhance flavor. Laughter again. Casual, amused laughter at the prospect of billions suffering unimaginable horror. Elara shut off the broadcast, a cold rage crystallizing within her. Any doubts about activating the Leviathan vanished in that moment. Let them laugh now. In 7 days, the galaxy would learn that humanity was not to be underestimated. In 7 days, the stars themselves would fall silent in shock. In 7 days, Earth would bare its teeth. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. Lieutenant Kaine Donovan's fingers danced across the holographic interface, adjusting sensor parameters with practiced precision. From his station aboard the Sentinel, Earth's outermost monitoring outpost near Jupiter's orbit, he had the best and worst view of what was coming. "Lieutenant," a voice called from behind him. "Status report." Kaine turned to face Captain Orla Vasquez, the Sentinel's commanding officer. Her weathered face, normally a mask of calm confidence, now bore the tension they all felt. "Dravak fleet has crossed the Kuiper Belt threshold, Captain. Approximately 72 hours until they reach Earth's orbit." He hesitated, then added, "Their numbers are greater than anticipated." The captain's jaw tightened. "How many?" Kaine projected the tactical display to the central view screen. A writhing mass of red indicators filled the holographic space, like a cancerous growth spreading across the stars. 372 capital ships, over 1,000 support vessels, and... He swallowed hard. What appears to be 5 hive carriers. Captain Vasquez's face paled. Even one hive carrier could deploy billions of Dravak ground forces, enough to overwhelm a planet twice Earth's size. "They're not taking any chances," she murmured. "They've sent enough firepower to consume 3 solar systems." The bridge fell silent as the crew absorbed the implications. Everyone knew what a Dravak invasion meant. They'd all seen the classified footage from the fall of Proxima Centauri's colonies. The harvest, the feeding stations, the birthing chambers where human hosts would be kept alive, conscious, feeling everything as Dravak larvae hatched inside them. "Send this data to command," Vasquez ordered, her voice hardening. "And what of the galactic broadcasts?" Kaine switched feeds. "Still going strong, Captain. Viewership has apparently broken all previous records." The main screen shifted to display what had become known among the crew as the Vulture feed, a real-time Galactic Council broadcast of Earth's impending doom, complete with expert commentary and betting pools. A Centurion host with iridescent scales was speaking, and as we see the magnificent Dravak Armada approach, let's discuss Earth's defenses with our military analyst. Grekthal, these humans seem to have only a handful of orbital platforms and a few hundred chemical propulsion vessels. Would you categorize this as a token resistance? The Gorgathy military expert, a brutish, six-limbed creature with armored skin, chortled, a sound like rocks in a grinder. Honestly, Zemore, calling it resistance at all is charitable. Their most advanced weapons are fusion-based. Fusion. My species abandoned that technology before we achieved spaceflight. The Dravak won't even notice these defenses as they consume them. Laughter rippled through the studio audience. The host's scales rippled in amusement. Our betting markets are heavily favoring a complete conquest within 5 standard hours, with the most popular wager being 3 hours 17 minutes. Would you agree with that assessment? I think that's generous, the analyst replied. Unless Earth has some hidden capability we don't know about, which is absurd given how thoroughly we've monitored them, I'd estimate total planetary consumption will begin within 2 hours of first contact. Captain Vasquez made a slashing motion across her throat, and Kaine gratefully cut the feed. Our orders, Captain? Asked Lieutenant Commander Way, the Sentinel's tactical officer. Vasquez stood silent for a long moment, looking at the tactical display where Earth, home to 11 billion souls, appeared as a small, vulnerable blue dot. We maintain position and continue monitoring, she finally said. Command will contact us if Protocol Omega is. Captain, Kaine interrupted, an urgent alert blinking on his console. Incoming transmission from Earth Command. Priority Alpha. Admiral Reeves requests secure connection. Vasquez straightened. Routed to my ready room. She paused at the door. Lieutenant Donovan, with me. The ready room sealed behind him with a pneumatic hiss. The Admiral's weathered face materialized on the view screen, his expression grim. Captain Vasquez, Lieutenant Donovan, he acknowledged. I'll be brief. Protocol Omega has been authorized. Kaine felt the air leave his lungs. Protocol Omega, the last resort contingency that most officers believed was theoretical. A myth told to new recruits, a comforting bedtime story that humanity had an ace up its sleeve. Sir, Vasquez replied carefully, Lieutenant Donovan has only Threshold 7 clearance. Admiral Reeves nodded. As of this moment, he's elevated to Threshold 9. We'll need every capable officer for what's coming. He looked directly at Kaine. Lieutenant, what you're about to learn has been kept from 99% of Earth's population. Can I trust you to bear that burden? Kaine straightened. Yes, sir. Good. The Admiral typed something off-screen, and Kaine's personal device chimed with an incoming data packet. These are your new orders. The Sentinel is to maintain position until the Dravak fleet reaches Mars orbit. Then you will execute a precision jump to these coordinates. Kaine studied the coordinates appearing on his device. Sir, this puts us beyond Neptune's orbit, near Charon. Correct. Once there, you'll rendezvous with the Leviathan. Captain Vasquez inhaled sharply. So it was real. The what, sir? Kaine asked, confusion evident. The Admiral's expression darkened. The Leviathan is complicated, Lieutenant. For now, understand it's our response to the Dravak. Your ship will serve as a support vessel during the engagement. With all due respect, Admiral, Vasquez interjected, the Sentinel is an observation platform, not a combat vessel. Against the Dravak fleet. You won't be engaging the Dravak directly, Reeves cut in. Your role will be to observe and record. The galaxy has been watching us, expecting entertainment. We're going to give them a show they'll never forget. His face softened slightly. Orla, I know what I'm asking. But someone needs to witness what's coming and report back. The captain nodded slowly. Understood, sir. Lieutenant Donovan, the Admiral continued, your background in xenobiology makes you uniquely qualified for this mission. The data packet contains everything you need to know about the Leviathan's unique properties. Kaine's device unlocked the classified files, and as he skimmed the first few sections, his blood ran cold. Sir, this can't be. We couldn't have. We could, and we did, Reeves replied flatly. 50 years ago, after the Meridian incursion, we realized the galaxy would never accept us as equals. While publicly pursuing diplomatic channels, Earth's governments secretly collaborated on a deterrent. The Leviathan is that deterrent. The Admiral's image flickered as a priority alert sounded. I need to go. Review those files and prepare your ship. Humanity's survival depends on what happens in the next 72 hours. His face hardened. And remember, while they laugh at our impending extinction, we will be the ones who determine who lives and who dies. The transmission ended, leaving Kaine and his captain in heavy silence. Read the files, Vasquez said quietly. I'll inform the crew of our new orders, though not their purpose. She moved toward the door but paused. When you're done reading, come find me. You'll need a drink. Alone in the ready room, Kaine opened the complete file and began reading. With each paragraph, the horror and genius of the Leviathan became clearer. This wasn't just a weapon. It was an abomination, a violation of nature itself. And yet, facing extinction, could humanity be blamed for creating such a thing? 2 days later, the Dravak fleet passed Mars. The galactic broadcast had expanded to 24 continuous feeds. Viewing parties were held across civilized space. Dignitaries from 17 species gathered on luxury observation vessels at the edge of the Sol system for the best view of humanity's extinction. Aboard the Sentinel, now positioned just beyond Neptune as ordered, Kaine watched the tactical display with growing dread. The Dravak fleet had split into 3 attack groups, one heading for Earth's lunar colonies, one for the orbital habitats, and the main force for Earth itself. They're taking their time, Captain Vasquez noted from beside him. Toying with us. Extending the entertainment, Kaine agreed bitterly. The broadcast ratings must be through the roof. The ship's communications officer called out, Captain, incoming transmission from Sharon Base. Text only, encrypted. The message appeared on Vasquez's personal screen. Leviathan awakens. Maintain position. Witness. Lieutenant, the captain said quietly. Activate the quantum entangled recording arrays. Full spectrum capture. Kaine complied, fingers moving mechanically as his mind struggled with what was about to happen. The recording system, based on technology far beyond what Earth had publicly demonstrated, would ensure that every moment of what followed would be preserved, immune to jamming, interference, or destruction. Commence recording, he confirmed. On the displays, the Dravak fleet approached Earth's orbit. The first shots were fired, human defense platforms launching everything they had. Against the vast Dravak vessels, Earth's weapons seemed pitifully inadequate, like fireworks against an avalanche. The galactic broadcast, still running on a secondary screen, showed aliens across the galaxy watching with gleeful anticipation. Reporters provided breathless commentary on humanity's desperate, futile defense. Oh my! Did you see that Dravak cruiser simply absorb that nuclear detonation? Not even a ripple in its shields. Truly magnificent. The humans are launching what appear to be their fighters, primitive atmospheric craft barely modified for vacuum. This is less a battle than a feeding frenzy. The first Dravak landing craft descended toward Earth's surface. In major cities, civilians looked skyward in terror at the dark shapes blotting out the sun. And then, something changed. From beyond Neptune's orbit, from the darkness near Sharon, sensors detected a massive energy surge. Space itself seemed to bend and tear as something enormous emerged from what appeared to be a hidden quantum fold. There it is, Vasquez whispered, her voice a mixture of awe and horror. God help us all. The Leviathan materialized fully, and Kaine's breath caught in his throat. It wasn't a conventional vessel. It didn't resemble any known ship design, human or alien. It was wrong somehow, as if it existed partially in dimensions beyond normal perception. Its hull, if it could be called that, seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, creating a silhouette of perfect darkness against the stars. Occasional pulses of eldritch energy rippled across its surface like neural impulses. Size estimate. Vasquez demanded. Impossible to determine precisely. Kaine replied, checking and rechecking his instruments. At least 30 kilometers in length, but, Captain, the mass readings don't make sense. It's as if parts of it aren't fully in our dimension. Because they're not, Vasquez said grimly. Keep recording. The Leviathan began to move, accelerating at a rate that defied physics. One moment it was at the edge of the Sol system. The next it was approaching Earth's orbit. No conventional drive could achieve such speed. It was as if the vessel was folding space around itself. The galactic broadcast suddenly erupted in confusion. What is that? Are you seeing this? Is this some kind of malfunction in our feed? We're receiving reports of an unknown vessel that has appeared near Earth. Our experts are attempting to identify. By the 7 moons, that thing just traversed 3 astronomical units in seconds. The humans couldn't possibly, The Leviathan reached Earth's orbit and stopped, hanging silently before the Dravak armada. For a moment, everything paused, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Then, the Leviathan began to change. Its surface rippled and shifted. What had seemed like a solid hull now flowed like liquid, extending vast tendrils of darkness toward the nearest Dravak vessels. Where those tendrils touched, Dravak ships simply ceased. Not exploded, not disintegrated, they vanished, as if they had never existed. "What are we seeing?" one of the Sentinel's junior officers whispered, horror evident in his voice. Kaine checked his readings, then double-checked them, unwilling to believe. The Leviathan it's not destroying the Dravak ships in the conventional sense. It's removing them from our reality, erasing them from existence. The Dravak fleet, recognizing the threat, redirected all firepower toward the Leviathan. Energy weapons, graviton missiles, antimatter torpedoes, the full destructive might of a civilization that had consumed 100 worlds, all focused on the pitch-black vessel. None of it had any effect. Weapons fire simply disappeared into the Leviathan's hull without impact, as if swallowed by a singularity. The galactic broadcast descended into chaos. Impossible. The Dravak dreadnoughts are just vanishing. This can't be real. Energy readings off the scale. That vessel is manipulating fundamental forces that shouldn't. All communications with our observation ships have ceased. We're getting reports of massive quantum disturbances throughout the system. On the tactical display, Kaine watched in silent horror as the Leviathan methodically consumed the Dravak fleet. Ship after ship disappeared, erased from reality itself. The vast hive carriers, each housing billions of Dravak young, simply ceased to be. "It's not just destroying them," he murmured. "It's feeding on them somehow, converting their mass and energy into something else." Captain Vasquez nodded grimly. That's what the Leviathan was designed to do. It doesn't just kill, it harvests. Every Dravak ship it consumes makes it stronger. The remaining Dravak vessels attempted to flee, engines straining as they accelerated away from Earth. But the Leviathan was faster. Tendrils of impossible darkness extended across vast distances, wrapping around fleeing ships and erasing them from existence. Within 17 minutes of the Leviathan's appearance, the entire Dravak fleet, nearly 1,500 vessels, had been consumed. And still, the Leviathan hungered. The vast ship turned its attention outward, toward the edges of the solar system where the galactic observation vessels hovered, their occupants no longer enjoying the show but frozen in terror. "It's going after the observers," Kaine realized with dawning horror. "The dignitaries, the broadcast ships." Captain Vasquez's comm unit chimed with an incoming message. She read it silently, then looked up. "New orders from command. We're to broadcast the following message on all galactic frequencies." She transferred the text to the communications station, and the officer's fingers trembled as he prepared the transmission. "Message ready, Captain." "Send it," Vasquez ordered. Across every communication channel, in every language understood by space-faring civilizations, Earth's message spread. "Attention Galactic Council and all observing species. You have witnessed the fate of those who threaten Earth. The Leviathan hungers still. Any vessel not departing the Sol system within 1 standard hour will be considered hostile and will be consumed. Earth does not ask for protection. Earth is the threat." The observation vessels didn't wait an hour. Within minutes, they were fleeing at maximum speed, abandoning equipment, broadcasting gear, and in some cases, their own crew members in their panic to escape. Throughout civilized space, the broadcasts that had been gleefully anticipating humanity's extinction abruptly ceased. Across hundreds of star systems, silence fell as the implications became clear. The primitive humans, the laughingstock of the galaxy, had just annihilated the most feared predator species known to exist. And they had done it in 17 minutes. On the Sentinel's bridge, Kaine watched as the Leviathan hung in Earth's orbit, still pulsing with eldritch energy. The monstrosity they had created, the abomination they had unleashed upon the galaxy. It had saved them. But at what cost? "What happens now?" he asked quietly. Captain Vasquez stared at the tactical display where the Leviathan's impossible form dominated the screen. "Now," she said, "the galaxy learns to fear us." In the Galactic Council's Grand Chamber, emergency sessions were called. Species that had been enemies for millennia suddenly found common cause in their terror of what humanity had unleashed. On Dravak Prime, the remaining Hive Queens sensed the extinction of their brood ships and recoiled in horror. For the first time in their species' history, they knew fear. Across the galaxy, civilizations that had laughed at humanity's impending doom now scrambled to establish diplomatic relations with Earth. Gift ships bearing treasures from 100 worlds were hastily dispatched. Apologies were drafted, treaties proposed, concessions offered. But Earth remained silent. The Leviathan returned to its hidden berth beyond Neptune, once again folding itself partially out of conventional reality. But its message had been delivered. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was the apex predator that had been hiding in plain sight. In the observation lounge of the Sentinel, Lieutenant Kaine Donovan stared out at the stars. The same stars that had witnessed the galaxy's mockery now witnessed its fear. The same darkness that had hidden the Leviathan now hid humanity's true nature. He thought of the billions of humans on Earth who would never know how close they had come to extinction, or the terrible price of their salvation. He thought of the Dravak, a species erased not just from life but from existence itself. He thought of the galaxy, suddenly facing the realization that the primitive apes from the unfashionable arm of the Milky Way had created something that defied the laws of reality. Was it worth it? He whispered to the void. The stars offered no answer. But in the silence that had fallen across the galaxy, the silence of terror, of shock, of sudden, terrible understanding, he thought perhaps he could hear the beginning of one. Humanity had survived. And in surviving, they had revealed themselves to be something far more dangerous than the galaxy had ever imagined. The Dravak had come to devour Earth. Instead, Earth had devoured them. And still, the Leviathan hungered. Part 3. Leviathan Rising. Chief Engineer Rylan Takeda's breath crystallized in the frigid air of Sharon Outpost's Central Command Center. Despite the environmental systems running at full capacity, the cold seemed to seep from the walls themselves, a perpetual reminder of their distance from the sun. 50 years of service had etched deep lines into his copper-brown face, each wrinkle a testament to sacrifices made in humanity's shadow war against extinction. "Status report," he demanded, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands, a neurological souvenir from early experiments with quantum field manipulation. Dr. Vivian Rousseau, head of the containment division, looked up from her console. Her eyes, enhanced with neural optic implants that allowed her to process data at superhuman speeds, briefly flashed blue as she computed the latest readings. "Awakening sequence at 37%, she reported. "Dimensional anchors holding at acceptable parameters. The entity remains stable within quantum confinement." Rylan nodded grimly. "And the consciousness integration protocols?" "Proceeding as designed. The hybrid neural network is syncing with the primary matrix." She hesitated. "Rylan, I'm detecting emotional residuals in the quantum substrate. It's aware that it's being awakened." A chill that had nothing to do with Karen's perpetual winter ran down Rylan's spine. He moved to the observation window that overlooked the vast chamber below, a cavernous space carved from Karen's icy core. What lay within defied conventional description. The Leviathan wasn't built. Not in any traditional sense. It was grown, cultivated, born. At the center of the chamber, suspended in a lattice of quantum field generators and exotic matter containment units, pulsed a mass of absolute darkness. Not the darkness of absence, but the darkness of negation, a void that seemed to consume light itself. Occasionally, the darkness rippled, revealing glimpses of geometries that hurt the human mind to perceive, structures that existed partially in dimensions beyond conventional space-time. Around this horrific heart, a more conventional vessel was taking shape as nanomachine swarms assembled the outer hull molecule by molecule. This physical shell, impressive enough at 30 kilometers in length, was merely the interface between the Leviathan's true nature and physical reality. "We never should have created this," Rylan whispered, more to himself than anyone else. Behind him, Director Julian Frost cleared his throat. Unlike the scientists and engineers in perpetual rotation through Sharon Outpost, the director had lived here for 27 years, overseeing the Leviathan project since its second phase. "Yet here we are," Frost said, his voice carrying the weight of decades of moral compromise. "With the Dravak 50 hours from Earth and 11 billion lives hanging in the balance. Your philosophical objections are noted, Chief Engineer, but hardly relevant at this juncture." Rylan turned, meeting the director's gaze. "You weren't there at first contact, Julian. You didn't see what we found in that crashed Meridian scout ship. You didn't have to make the choice." "No," Frost acknowledged. "But I've spent my entire career living with the consequences of that choice. As have you." A klaxon blared, pulling their attention back to the monitors. Dr. Rousseau's augmented eyes widened. "Quantum fluctuation in the primary containment field. The entity is demonstrating increased autonomy." "Stabilize it," Rylan ordered, rushing to the control console. His fingers flew across the interface, making minute adjustments to the dimensional anchors. "Increase suppressor protocol alpha. Route additional power to the cognitive limiters. On the massive displays, warning symbols flashed as the Leviathan tested its constraints. The darkness at its core pulsed and writhed, pushing against the quantum barriers that kept it partially phased out of conventional reality. "It remembers," Dr. Rousseau whispered. "It remembers what it did to the Meridian expedition." Director Frost's face hardened. "It remembers that it saved humanity. Doctor, focus on your duties." Rylan shot the director a glance, but said nothing. They both knew the truth was more complicated. The entity that formed the Leviathan's core hadn't saved humanity out of altruism. It had fed, and in feeding, it had developed a taste for sentient life. The comms system chimed, and Admiral Reeves' weathered face appeared on the main screen. "Time is running short," the Admiral said without preamble. "The Dravak have accelerated their approach. They'll reach Earth in 36 hours, not 50 as previously calculated. Is the Leviathan ready?" Director Frost straightened. "Awakening sequence is proceeding according to schedule, Admiral. We can accelerate if necessary, but there are risks." "Whatever the risks, they pale in comparison to extinction," Reeves cut in. "The Galactic Council has formally denied our emergency petition for intervention. In fact, they've increased the broadcast coverage. 17 major species are now streaming Earth's final hours as premium entertainment." Rylan felt bile rise in his throat. "They're still watching? Even knowing what's coming for us?" "Not just watching," the Admiral replied, disgust evident in his voice. "Profiting. The broadcast rights alone have generated enough revenue to build a new Meridian colony. And the betting pools on how quickly we'll fall have reached astronomical figures." An icy silence fell over the command center. Every person present had dedicated their lives to Project Leviathan, working in isolation on this distant outpost, sacrificing families, friends, normal lives, all to create humanity's insurance policy. An insurance policy they had prayed would never be needed. "How much can we tell the crew?" Rylan asked finally. Admiral Reeves considered this. "Give them level 8 clearance. They deserve to know what they're a part of, now that deployment is inevitable." The communication ended, leaving the command center in heavy silence. Director Frost addressed the gathered personnel. "You've all worked on isolated systems, specific components, discrete functions. Today, you learned the whole truth." He nodded to Rylan. "Chief Engineer Takeda was there at the beginning. He'll explain." All eyes turned to Rylan. He took a deep breath, the weight of 50 years of secrecy pressing down on him. In 2073, a Meridian scout ship crashed in the Gobi Desert. This was humanity's true first contact, not the diplomatic mission in 2087 that the public knows about. He brought up archival footage on the main display, grainy images of a vessel unlike anything humanity had seen before, partially embedded in desert sand. The ship was damaged, but largely intact. Inside, we found the crew, 12 Meridian explorers, all dead. But they hadn't died in the crash. Rylan's voice dropped. Something had consumed them from the inside out. Left hollowed husks, their neural tissue selectively devoured. He advanced the footage to show the ship's cargo hold. In a quantum-sealed container, we found this. The screen showed a small obsidian sphere, no larger than a basketball, yet somehow seeming to absorb all light around it. The Meridians had been transporting it from a dead system near Galactic Central. Based on their logs, they discovered it in the ruins of a civilization that had apparently destroyed itself. They didn't know what it was, only that it exhibited properties that defied known physics. During transport, the containment field failed momentarily. That was enough. Rylan closed his eyes briefly, remembering. It infected the crew psychically first, then physically. By the time they crashed on Earth, the entity had consumed most of their higher brain functions. Dr. Rousseau leaned forward. "You're saying the Leviathan is alien?" "Not exactly," Rylan replied. "What we found was more like a seed, a fragment of something larger, something older than the Meridians, possibly older than intelligent life in our galaxy." Director Frost took over. Earth's governments faced an impossible choice. Destroy the entity, if such a thing was even possible, or study it, learn from it. We chose the latter, but with strict containment protocols. For 20 years, Rylan continued, we studied it in an underground facility in Antarctica. We learned that it existed partially in dimensions beyond our perception, that it could manipulate quantum fields in ways we couldn't comprehend, let alone replicate, that it fed on neural energy, specifically on sentience itself. He brought up new images, schematics, biological diagrams, physics equations that looked more like mystical symbols than science. Then we learned about the Dravak, about how the galaxy really functioned, about humanity's place in the cosmic hierarchy or lack thereof. We realized that sooner or later, Earth would face an existential threat from the stars, and conventional weapons wouldn't save us. So you weaponized it, a young technician said, horror dawning on her face. We partnered with it, Director Frost corrected sharply. A symbiotic relationship. We feed it. It protects us. Feed it what, exactly? The technician pressed. An uncomfortable silence fell. Synthetic neural networks, primarily, Rylan answered carefully. Quantum computers running advanced consciousness simulations. He didn't mention the early experiments, the death row inmates whose minds had been sacrificed to understand the entity's feeding patterns. Some secrets were still too dark to share. The outer vessel, the physical ship you've all helped construct, is merely a delivery system, he continued. A way to direct and control the entity. The quantum drives, the dimensional phasing technology, the sentient metal alloys, all designed to interface with something that isn't entirely of our reality. On the main display, the awakening sequence continued. The darkness at the Leviathan's core pulsed stronger now, more rhythmic, like a massive heart beginning to beat after decades of dormancy. You've created a god, Dr. Rousseau whispered. No, Rylan corrected grimly. We've chained one. In the hours that followed, Sharon Outpost transformed from a secret research facility to a military launch platform. Personnel who had spent careers developing theoretical weapons suddenly faced the reality of deployment. The Leviathan, once an abstract project, was becoming a terrifying actuality. Rylan retreated to his private quarters, a Spartan room befitting his decades of service. From a locked drawer, he removed an old-fashioned photo frame containing a faded image. Himself as a young man standing beside a woman with laughing eyes and a small boy perched on her shoulders. Keiko and Hiroshi, his wife and son, long since given up on him ever returning from his classified deep space assignment. Hiroshi would be 47 now, possibly with children of his own. Grandchildren that Rylan had never met and likely never would. Just one of countless sacrifices made for Project Leviathan. His comm unit chirped. Chief Engineer to Command Center. Priority Alpha. When Rylan arrived, he found Director Frost and Dr. Rousseau staring at a live feed from Earth. On the screen, crowds gathered in major cities worldwide, looking up at the sky where the first Dravak scouts had entered the atmosphere. Dark shapes against blue, heralding the armada to follow. They're ahead of schedule, Frost said tightly. The main fleet will reach Earth within 12 hours. The Leviathan isn't ready, Rousseau objected. The consciousness integration is only at 63%. Then we proceed with what we have, Rylan decided. Initiate launch sequence. Alarms sounded throughout the facility as personnel rushed to their stations. In the containment chamber below, the quantum field generators intensified, focusing their energies on the writhing darkness at the Leviathan's core. Dimensional anchors disengaging, a technician reported. Preparing to transition from quantum stasis to active configuration. On the monitors, the massive outer hull of the Leviathan began to move, nanomachines completing final connections as systems came online. The obsidian surface, composed of sentient metal alloys that could reconfigure at the molecular level, rippled like liquid despite its apparent solidity. Neural interface online, Dr. Rousseau announced. Requesting primary pilot. Director Frost nodded to Rylan. You built it. You fly it. Rylan swallowed hard but moved to the neural interface chair, a menacing construction of metal and crystalline structures that looked more religious than technological. As he sat, neural probes extended, connecting with the implants at the base of his skull. Establishing link to Leviathan primary consciousness. He reported, his voice already distant as his mind began to merge with something far larger and more alien than himself. Initiating synaptic synchronization. The sensation was indescribable, like having his consciousness suddenly expanded to fill an ocean after a lifetime confined to a drop of water. The entity that formed the Leviathan's core reached for him hungrily, recognizing the mind that had communed with it for decades. Feed, it seemed to whisper, though not in words. Hunger. Consume. Containment protocols holding, he managed to say through gritted teeth. Directing primary consciousness toward tactical awareness. In the vast chamber beneath the control center, the Leviathan fully awakened. Its outer hull, now complete, was 30 kilometers of perfect darkness that drank in light. Within, the entity pulsed and writhed, eager to be unleashed. Docking clamps disengaged, a technician reported. Hangar doors opening. Above Sharon, massive doors built into the moon's icy surface slowly parted, revealing the void of space beyond. Sharon itself had been partially hollowed out to serve as the Leviathan's berth, the ultimate black site hidden in plain sight at the edge of the solar system. Launch sequence initiated, Director Frost announced. May God forgive us for what we've created. Through his neural link, Rylan felt the Leviathan rise from its decades-long slumber. Felt its hunger, its eagerness, its alien consciousness interpreting the universe through perceptions no human mind was meant to comprehend. The massive vessel ascended slowly from Charon's surface, dimensional drives humming as they manipulated the fabric of space-time around the hull. Once clear of the moon, the Leviathan hung against the backdrop of stars, an impossibility made manifest, a weapon born from humanity's desperation and an ancient entity's hunger. Set course for Earth, Rylan commanded. His consciousness stretched between his human body and the vast, alien mind of the Leviathan. Maximum dimensional translation. The ship, if such a conventional term could apply to the Leviathan, began to fold space around itself. Not moving through space in the traditional sense, but bringing its destination closer by manipulating the underlying structure of reality. As the Leviathan accelerated toward Earth, Rylan caught glimpses of its true nature through their neural connection. The entity at its core was ancient beyond comprehension, a fragment of something that had existed in the void between galaxies long before life evolved on Earth. It didn't think as humans understood thought. It experienced, it consumed, it grew. And now, directed by human will and technology, it hungered for the Dravak. Across the Sol system, sensors detected the Leviathan's approach. On Earth, military commanders watched with mingled hope and dread as the classified weapon they'd been told would save humanity finally revealed itself. In the Galactic Council's observation vessels, hovering at the edge of the system to witness Earth's fall, sophisticated instruments registered energy signatures unlike anything recorded in the Council's million-year history. And aboard the lead Dravak hive carrier, the swarm matriarch felt something she had never experienced in a lifetime of consuming worlds. Fear. On the Leviathan's command deck, a space that existed somewhere between physical reality and the quantum realm, Rylan Takeda stood alone. His physical body remained at Sharon Outpost, connected via the neural interface, but his consciousness projected here, allowing him to direct the Leviathan's actions. The deck appeared solid enough, with control interfaces that resembled those of a conventional vessel, but everything was formed from the same liquid darkness as the outer hull. The walls occasionally rippled, revealing glimpses of geometries that human eyes weren't meant to process, spaces that folded back on themselves, corridors that led everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. Through viewports of sorts, Rylan could see Earth growing larger as the Leviathan approached. Around the blue planet, the Dravak fleet had arrived in force. Hundreds of biomechanical vessels that resembled massive insects, their hulls covered in chitinous armor and organic weapons ports. The first wave of Dravak landing craft had already descended toward Earth's surface. In cities across the globe, civilians looked up in terror as the sky darkened with invasion ships. On Rylan's command interfaces, which responded to thought as much as touch, tactical displays showed Earth's defensive forces mobilizing. Orbital platforms fired their meager weapons. Fighter squadrons rose to meet the invaders. Ground-based missile systems targeted the largest Dravak vessels. All ineffective. The Dravak shields absorbed nuclear detonations without faltering. Their weapons sliced through Earth's most advanced fighter craft as if they were paper. Through his neural link with the Leviathan, Rylan felt the entity's hunger intensify at the sight of the Dravak fleet. So much life, so much sentience, so much to consume. Not yet, he whispered, exerting his will over the ancient consciousness. We wait for them to commit fully to the attack. We want them all. The entity's frustration manifested as ripples of energy across the Leviathan's hull, but it obeyed. For now. On Earth, the first Dravak ground forces made landfall. Massive figures, resembling mantis-like creatures standing 3 meters tall, emerged from landing craft. Their compound eyes glowed with cold intelligence as they assessed their surroundings, mandibles clicking in anticipation of the feast to come. In the lead Dravak hive carrier, the swarm matriarch communicated with her generals, mandibles clacking in their chittering language, commence primary harvest. Prepare population centers for larval implantation. This world will nourish 1 trillion offspring. The broadcast feeds from the Galactic Council observation vessels continued their coverage. And there we have it. First Dravak ground forces have landed in what humans call Paris and Tokyo. Our betting pools are now closed, with final odds favoring complete planetary consumption within 4 standard hours. Truly a textbook invasion. Note how the Dravak landing pattern maximizes efficiency for biomass processing. The humans are offering resistance, but it's merely, wait, what is that? The commentator's voice shifted from amusement to confusion as the Leviathan finally came into range of their sensors. On the command deck, Rylan Takeda made his decision. We've seen enough. They're fully committed to the attack. He accessed the communications array. Send the prepared message to Earth Command. Authentication code, Prometheus Unbound. The message was brief. The Leviathan deployed. All Earth forces disengage and seek shelter. What comes next is not for human eyes. Then, to the entity that powered the Leviathan, Rylan surrendered partial control. Find the Dravak, he commanded. Consume them all. The Leviathan's hull began to transform, the sentient metal reconfiguring as the entity within exerted its will upon physical reality. Vast tendrils of perfect darkness extended from the main body, reaching impossible distances as they phased partially out of conventional space-time. The first tendril reached a Dravak cruiser. Where they touched, reality itself seemed to fray. The cruiser didn't explode, didn't break apart. It simply ceased to exist, its matter and energy and the sentience of its crew absorbed into the Leviathan's core. Through his neural link, Rylan felt the entity's pleasure as it fed. Felt the rush of absorbed consciousness, the terror of the Dravak as they faced something beyond their comprehension. The Dravak fleet responded instantly, all attention shifting from Earth to this new threat. Weapons fired, energy beams and graviton torpedoes converging on the Leviathan's position. They had no effect. The weapons' fire simply disappeared into the Leviathan's hull, the energy consumed and converted, making the entity stronger. More tendrils extended, reaching across vast distances to wrap around Dravak vessels. Ship after ship vanished, erased from existence, their constituent particles and the consciousness of their crews absorbed into the Leviathan's ever-growing hunger. The galactic broadcast descended into chaos. Impossible. What kind of weapon? By the 13 sacred moons. The human vessel is consuming the Dravak fleet. This violates all known laws of physics. We're detecting quantum disturbances throughout the system. All observation vessels, withdraw immediately. This is not safe. Aboard the Dravak hive carrier, the swarm matriarch screeched commands to her fleet. Retreat. Full-dimensional jump. Abandon harvest. But there was nowhere to run. The Leviathan's tendrils, now stretching across millions of kilometers, found every Dravak vessel. One by one, they vanished, consumed by an entity older than their species, older than most life in the galaxy. Through his neural connection, Rylan felt the lives extinguishing, billions of Dravak minds briefly touching his before being absorbed into the Leviathan's consciousness. The sensation was overwhelming, terrifying, intoxicating. With each ship consumed, the Leviathan grew stronger, its hunger more intense. And Rylan struggled to maintain control. Enough, he commanded as the last Dravak warship vanished. The threat is neutralized. But the entity wasn't satisfied. Its hunger, awakened after decades of carefully controlled feeding, now raged unchecked. Through Rylan's expanded consciousness, he sensed the Leviathan turning its attention to the Galactic Council observation vessels hovering at the edge of the system. No, he shouted, exerting his will through the neural interface. They are not the enemy. The entity resisted, darkness rippling across the Leviathan's hull as a struggle for control ensued. In Sharon Outpost's control center, Rylan's physical body convulsed in the neural interface chair, blood trickling from his nose as the strain became too much. We're losing him. Dr. Rousseau shouted, rushing to stabilize his vital signs. The entity is overwhelming the neural connection. Deploy the suppression protocols. Director Frost ordered. Full-spectrum cognitive dampeners. In the Leviathan's virtual command deck, Rylan fought against the ancient consciousness that threatened to consume his own. The walls around him rippled violently, spaces folding and unfolding in impossible geometries as the entity's true nature leaked into his perception. You will obey, he gasped, focusing his decades of experience with the entity into a single, concentrated effort of will. Earth commands. You serve. For a moment that stretched to eternity, Rylan Takeda's human consciousness hung suspended in the void between realities, facing something that existed before stars formed, something that would exist after they died, an immortal hunger given form. A fragment of cosmic darkness chained to human purpose. Then, gradually, he felt the entity yield. Not out of submission, but calculation. It had fed well today. It could wait for more. The Leviathan's hull stabilized, tendrils retracting. The dimensional distortions that had threatened to tear apart nearby space subsided. At Rylan's command, the Leviathan broadcast a message to the fleeing observation vessels, transmitted in all known galactic languages. Attention Galactic Council and all observing species. You have witnessed the fate of those who threaten Earth. The Leviathan hungers still. Any vessel not departing the Sol system within 1 standard hour will be considered hostile and will be consumed. Earth does not ask for protection. Earth is the threat. The galactic vessels didn't need to be told twice. They fled at maximum speed, abandoning equipment in their haste to escape what they had witnessed. In Earth orbit, where the massive Dravak fleet had been moments before, the Leviathan now hung alone, a monument to humanity's desperation and ingenuity, a warning to the galaxy, and a reminder of the terrible price of survival. Through the neural link, as his consciousness began to disengage from the Leviathan's systems, Rylan sensed the entity's thoughts, not words, but impressions, concepts, hunger momentarily sated but never extinguished. And beneath it all, a promise, soon. Free. Consume all. As his awareness returned fully to his physical body in Sharon Outpost, Rylan Takeda knew with terrible certainty that they hadn't saved humanity today. They had merely postponed one threat by unleashing another. The Leviathan had tasted true freedom, true feeding, and it would not forget. As medical staff disconnected him from the neural interface, Rylan managed to whisper a warning to Director Frost. The chains are weakening. God help us all when they break.